experienced a lung injury due to e-cigarettes or vaping.
42 people, including 2 from Missouri, have died, and those numbers continue to climb. KRCG 13's Megan Sanchez tonight shares the story of a Millersburg man now recovering from a vaping-related lung injury.
I spoke to Bethany Byler-Pouts. Her son, 22-year-old Michael Martin, is a fiance and a father to a newborn. But his days do not look like that of a healthy guy in his 20s adjusting to parenthood. Instead, his mom says the last few months have been a nightmare for Michael, filled with chest tubes, a walker, and so much more.
I guess I was probably kind of one of those parents who was just happy that he wasn't smoking cigarettes.
Bethany Byler-Pouts raised her kids in a small town. Her son Michael graduated from South Callaway High School, and she says smoking cigarettes was the cool thing to do. So when her son started vaping, she wasn't too concerned.
I really thought that it was the lesser of many evils of what he could be doing, you know, as a young dude.
But everything changed this summer when Byler-Pouts got a call from her son's fiance. Michael had been rushed to the emergency room, suffering a pulmonary embolism. When Byler-Pouts arrived at the hospital, she found her son in a coma, hooked up to wires and tubes, not breathing on his own.
The mood in the hospital room was just, we were all just absolutely terrified.
A pulmonary embolism occurs when blood clots travel from other parts of the body to the lungs and then burst. When Michael first arrived at the hospital, teams of doctors were running every test they could think of, trying to figure out why a young, healthy man had this happen. It was eventually brought up that Michael vaped, including cartridges with THC, and after ruling everything out, doctors decided vaping had to be the culprit.
He coughed up blood for about a month. It would fill container after container after container.
Michael was in the intensive care unit for 28 days. He had to miss the birth of his first child, a baby girl. His fiance delivered at another hospital, and he watched via phone. Despite all that had happened, he was able to meet his little girl and come home, but that didn't last long.
He said, I feel like I'm drowning, Mom. I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like there's water in my lungs. And I said, okay, well, we're going to need to get you to the hospital. He didn't want to go that night, but he did go the next day. And when we got him there, they immediately took him into the ER. They took him straight back to surgery because he had collapsed both lungs.
Dr. Armin Krvavac is a pulmonologist with MU Healthcare. He's seen several cases like Michael's.
There's quite a large variability of symptoms and severity of symptoms amongst patients that develop vaping-related lung injury. Those that end up in the intensive care unit and end up on a ventilator for several days and lose a lot of muscle mass and become very weak are going to have a lot longer road and need a lot more rehabilitation and time to recover and get back to a normal functional status.
Last month, Governor Mike Parson signed an executive order to discourage vaping among Missouri youth. Some argue the problem stems only from users lacing the vaping oil with substances such as THC, the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana. Others, including the Parson team, argue the vaping oil itself represents a threat on its own.
I think the biggest fear we have is the unknown of the products. I don't think anybody knows.
A long road ahead is exactly what Michael's looking at. He's back home now, but still has chest tubes. One of his lungs has inflated, but the other still hasn't. Doctors are hoping to avoid surgery.
The doctors are very positive and very hopeful, and they do feel like he'll make a full recovery, but the path is long, and it's not easy. It's very painful.
Michael will have diminished lung capacity for the rest of his life. He's dealing with a heart condition after the ordeal, too. But since he's gotten out of the hospital, he and his mom have been insistent on spreading the truth about vaping.
If somebody that you love is vaping, do your research if you have to, if they won't do their research, and give them all the information that you can. It's so easy to ignore things that don't seem to be hurting you.
The CDC says of the 1,900 vaping-related lung injuries they've been able to gather data for, 77% of the patients were under age 35. To see more photos and read more about this story, you can go to our website, krcgtv.com.